We should be live right now. Go ahead, Alicia.
Hi, friends, friends and family. Welcome for live stream number something because I cannot remember which one it is. I believe it's the sixth one. So
Yeah,
I'm really
probably.
happy to welcome everyone. It's been 2 weeks since the last one, and we have two new amazing guests today. We have Sam J Studio, hi, and we
Hey.
have Ixulo, hence or
Hello.
alias Nick. And yeah, I'm so happy to have you all around. Obviously, we have Fesk, my amazing co-host here with us, and we shall begin as per usual. For those who aren't familiar with what we do here, basically, we just have a chill conversation, and we talk about everything from NFTs to mental health and daily struggles, etc. And we're just really trying to open up and be, I guess, as much as vulnerable as we can. So there's that, and I know it's a difficult thing to achieve, but anyways, we always try, and we're doing our best, and we're doing great already. So I'm really proud of us to do so. And without further ado, I want to introduce our guest and everyone by asking and doing basically a round table and seeing how everyone has been feeling lately and what has been on your mind and what have you faced and all of that. So I want to start with Nick, because I know you mentioned earlier when we were talking that you've been kind of off at the moment, trying to take some time for yourself. Really proud of you to do so. And yeah, I just wanted to hear, like, how has it been for you to try and step back, and what is going on?
Yeah, I mean, kind of right before I stepped back, I mean, sales felt like for me, I was pretty comfortable and confident, and like with the artwork I was doing, I was pretty much happy and content in a way. Like, I know that's very temporary for artists. You know, you can feel very content with your artwork, but then it's like there's this itch that you need to like keep going, keep pushing. But I think for me, like I always work kind of like in ebbs and flows, and as an artist, like all my life, I always find like August this time of like rest and relaxation. I don't know if it's because I'm like a Leo, but I just find it a time to kind of just chill out. I don't find much creative energy during that month. So yeah, like early August, I just naturally just stepped out and just kind of took things more slow. Maybe work on like one project here, but I'm not overplating, putting too much on my plate, because I've definitely done that. I'm sure a lot of you guys probably agree. When you just start piling things up, it's just the stress starts compounding, and it's like you can feel it physically and mentally, and it's just like it can affect your sleep. And like I've noticed my like sleep schedule's improved, and like I'm just a lot more happier that I'm like a little less on like social media, even though it's great to be able to promote your work and be involved. And you know, everything that really exploded in the past like month, especially like we're talking about with OpenSea, which is really fun. So it's been awesome, honestly. This month, I'm really happy I did that, and I think I'll probably try and do it more often, but it's always trying to find that time and place to do it. For me, it's just feels like it's just August so far. One month out of the whole year, I'll just kind of find some downtime. But yeah, it's been great, honestly.
Yeah, thanks for sharing about that. I want to ask further questions after we do the round table, but I really appreciate your insight. I feel like you're the chill guy here, you know.
Yeah.
I always feel like Nick has some such positive and chill energy, you know, and I can really feel it radiate through you. But I know that there's more to you just than that, and I'm excited to talk about that. Hey, Sam, I want to talk with you also and see how you've been doing lately, because we never connected before, and it's really amazing to finally able to talk with you and share with you. So just wanted to hear a bit about how you've been feeling lately.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I'm also a Leo and I feel the complete opposite. Like, I always get really, well, I don't know, it's hard to say because I have only been like a full-time artist since really 2020. So I finished art school in December
Mm-hmm.
2019. So I'm still kind of figuring out like what my creative patterns are, and I'm kind of just winging it and trying not to overwork myself. And it's been a really interesting sort of road of discovery because I sort of graduated right into COVID. And so I started really with like zero work. I freelanced right away, and like, so I was just freelancing, and I kind of started with nothing. And so I'm slowly, especially with NFTs, like picking up more and more work, and I'm discovering like, okay, how busy can I get before it's like too busy, and testing my limits. And
Mm.
definitely I feel like August was my most intense month because I just had my a really big project as a part of Amsterdam Fashion Week, and usually I like to take a lot of time for projects. But yeah, I mean, if anybody knows anything about the fashion industry, deadlines are really tight and quick turnaround. So, I had to wait for like, because I was collaborating with the fashion brand here, so I
Mm-hmm.
had to wait for like their collection to be at a point where then I could start working with their designs, and then it was just it was really fun, and I had a great experience, and it was an awesome project, and like it's still kind of surreal to me, but I think that was definitely like a personal like baseline of like, okay, don't push yourself harder than that because that's gonna just be unpleasant and like not worth it in the long run. But yeah, overall it went really well, and like now I am sort of mentally preparing for things like NFT NYC and trying to think like what projects should I be dropping there, should, because my 1 year anniversary on Super Rare is around the same time. So I'm like, shoot, and like the holidays I'm going to be traveling a lot, and I'm moving into a new art studio right now, so I'm like, a lot is kind of moving. So I'm trying to feel like, okay, what should I want to take the time to like rest my creative muscles and really develop like stronger ideas and like put together a really good project for my 1 year, because it'll be my 12th project in a year, and like it's just going to be hopefully like great timing and like a really solid year of super rare projects. And I don't want to rush it. I want to take the time to like really chill and make sure everything is in place, and it ends up how I would like to. And that's usually what I try to do with most of my projects. Like, yeah, like I said, I only have 12 projects on super after a whole year, so or
That's
11
awesome.
at this point. But yeah, so I'm kind of right at my beginning of my like chill period.
Okay. I mean, it's okay. Like, no one has the same rhythm or pace in terms of process
Yeah.
and methods and all of that, so it's totally okay. And it's interesting I think to discuss all of those things with people from different backgrounds and people who have more experiences, like in terms of years in the industry and like newcomers to the industry, etc. I feel like it's an interesting perspective to have, and I kind of want to dive into it a bit more after that, because I feel like it's interesting to have that insight from you, because I'm not saying that I'm old or something,
Yeah.
but it's just that whether you've been in the industry for a longer time or just came in, everyone's facing the same things, the same struggles, and it's interesting to see how everyone copes with that, I guess. But hey, thank you for sharing with us about that. And yeah, Fesk, my dear Fesk, what's up?
Yeah,
How are you feeling?
how's it going, everyone? Well, I just came from 2 extremely busy months. Like July until the middle of August was pretty much madness over here. Like a bunch of projects, and most of them not even like extremely exhaustive, like a single project. But then I made the mistake of stacking up multiple projects at once, and it got pretty heavy on me. So I just now getting a little bit more time to actually work on personal projects and think, oh, okay, what's the approach that I wanted to take now with my personal work and stuff like that. So yeah, I've come from extremely busy few weeks, and I'm finally now being able to chill a little bit but then like right after right as I get this break, like my personal life became like a fucking tornado. Extreme, a lot of problems on my personal life. So it's been a little bit tricky. Like, thank God the problems on the personal life came right after the the extremely busy moments professionally wise. Otherwise, it would be like a mess. But yeah, I'm fine. I'm taking more time to actually work on my personal life and hopefully get back on track with my professional work and stuff.
That's cool. I mean, I know you've been working a lot the past few months. I know you've been out and about, like doing so many things. And it's nice to finally hear you settling in a bit, I guess, and diving in more into your own self, because sometimes you kind of forget about yourself, which is normal. But it's nice to have those centering moments, I guess, and I'm really proud of you to do so. When we are talking, I can see the difference from a few weeks ago and from now. And it's always nice to check in with you. Obviously, we talk on a more regular basis, so I know more about you. But it's interesting for people to know that you've been doing all of those things, as Sam is doing as well, and as Nick, I'm sure, is also doing that, of working with clients and doing NFT on this side and doing all of this all at once. And yeah, that is stressful. There's not a lot of place for yourself in the midst of it all, I guess. But yeah, I'm just gonna drop a line for myself. I always do. I know it's really weird to talk about myself anyways as a host. But I'm doing fine, I guess. I've been honestly doing great. I'm in a great mood, which is always a bit weird for me to experience. I was never really familiar with positivity or happiness or happy feelings in general. That's something I discovered this year. I think NFTs and therapy and medication has a lot to do with that, because otherwise I don't know if I would have been able to experience such feelings in general. But yeah, it's interesting to witness that. And other than that, I'm just really, really busy, and it's kind of difficult to balance everything out, to be honest. I feel like it's difficult for me to know that I have to take weekends off, take some time to actually be with my partner, because we want to have quality time together, and I have to do compromises. So weekends are for us and we do things together, but then I also have to work. He doesn't really care, but it's always like I have the pressure to be there for him and there for me, for my personal projects and for other projects I'm involved into, etc. And I feel like I'm always trying to have a kind of a ubiquity gift, which I am not able to achieve, to be honest. Because that's unnatural and unhuman. But yeah, it's a bit frustrating sometimes, especially because I get a bit I always get too involved in everything I do, which means that if I'm in a group project or something, I will be way too involved in the group project and just start doing things and be like, okay, we should do that and this and that, and then I'm just like, oh well, this doesn't work, we're actually taking another route or things like that, and then I get frustrated because I'm just like, but I did all of this for nothing.
Yeah, I do the same. I get really invested when it comes to group projects or even collaborations. I get really damn invested in collaborations and stuff. So it's always a little bit tricky to know when you are doing quote unquote too much, Yeah.
It's you're setting, maybe sometimes you set the bar, I feel like I do that, where I set the bar maybe too high, where it's kind of a little unrealistic, to try and reach up to that way. So it's kind of having to balance that head in the clouds and oh, this cool stuff you could do, but you want to be grounded and be realistic and time things. So it's a
Yeah,
balance act.
it's hard to like manage the expectations when you're working with other people because you never know like their boundaries or their limits or what they're
Mm-hmm.
comfortable with doing. And it's funny you mentioned weekends because now that I'm like starting to be busier and busier, it's like I feel like I was raised with this sort of mentality of like a 5-day work week, and then I realized
Okay.
like, oh well, if I just work on the weekends, I can get so much more done. Like I can work 7 days a week, and then now I've done that for a couple months, and I'm like, yeah, I can do more, but is it worth it? Like, should I keep doing that? Like that doesn't seem very healthy, but um, yeah, it's you know important to like at least also with collaborations, like I try not to expect the same sort of unhealthy working habits from my peers and not push them
Mm-hmm.
too hard. And there's a quote or something I heard from like YouTube or whatever, and it was like expectations are just premeditated disappointments, and I really
Yeah.
like that
Word.
because it's just
Yeah.
like kind of go with the flow, see what's happening, and you know make it work.
That hurts, and that strikes a chord, to be honest. That's like so on brand. I always think about that with expectations, whether it's like professional expectations or personal expectations, etc. Because all of the expectations we have aren't really generated by what we really want, but it's more influenced by the things we see around us,
Yeah.
how we see others succeed, how we think that something is better than we have, etc. So it's always really interesting to have a different perspective of these expectations. I really, really love that quote you just mentioned, Sam. Just wanted to pinpoint that. On another note, though, I want to quickly just go and do another kind of roundtable and just start by asking some things that came to my mind when we were talking about each other. Nick, I wanted to ask you because we get this question a lot from people in general, which is basically, what do you do when you're trying to distance yourself from work, and how do you achieve such thing? Basically, what are your mechanism? What are your processes? What are your hobbies? How do you manage to put that distance between yourself when it's and your work when it's really needed?
I mean, I struggle with that because I mean, I've been working remotely for the past, 5, 10 years, so it's kind of hard because your office is in your house, so you can't just get in a car, drive away, and it's behind you. It's right there, so it's really difficult, and I find it even difficult these days to kind of like detach myself completely away from it. So it's always kind of to have to not run on default, like this default mode of just kind of, on rails. So you have to kind of have this like internal dialogue with yourself. And you're like, all right, maybe you have like a mantra, a personal mantra or something where you can kind of stop yourself and take yourself outside of that situation. And I find this even helped with like when I dealt with like panic attacks and stuff. It's just being mindfulness, I think, kind of helps really. And knowing that you're like, for me, I'm like not a robot, I can't constantly be doing this every day. So it's a bit of a battle. So I find myself having to have like internal dialogues and, all right, you're done for the day. It's late, step away. Even though it's so easy just to go into the other room where the office is at and the studio's at and just, keep doing what you do. And it comes from love and passion. It's like what you love to do. So there's a lot of heart in it, but you have to just kind of be realistic. So it's a bit of a balancing act. So
Yeah.
I find it difficult even to these days to really do it, but like sometimes it just comes naturally, as I mentioned. Like I think when I feel kind of content with my work and I don't need to push myself, I don't need to like prove myself to anyone, rather than just prove it to myself, then I feel a lot more complacent with who I am. So it's easier to step away from that, if that makes sense.
Would
Yeah.
you say that Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, just real quick. I really resonate with that. I can easily step away from a work either if I'm happy with the work or if I'm really disappointed. Like, I'm disappointed to a level that, okay, it's not even worth it trying to keep making this better. But if I find myself in the middle, which like I can work a little bit more and make it a little bit better, then it's like, it's terrible. I cannot step away until I get to either of these extremes, you know, which is, it's not ideal at all.
There was a moment for me working on my last project where I was like so nervous about releasing it, and like it was getting to a point where I'm like, oh, it's almost done, but it's still like really not where I need it to be. And I was like trying to go to sleep at like 3 in the morning, and I couldn't sleep at all for like 2 hours. So I just got back up at like 5 a.m. I'm like, well, I guess the only thing I can do is keep working on it, because I'm just so like tied up mentally and like, you know, fighting with myself about this project. And like I obviously that's not very healthy, but at the same time, it is kind of like therapeutic in a way to like just sit down and like kind of like, I don't know how to explain it, but just I feel like I'm chiseling away at a project, and like at least get it past that mental block where you're like, I don't know if this is good or bad, like what's going on with this project. I mean, that's definitely not a healthy habit, but I think it's really hard to avoid.
Yeah, I think it's always good to be able to push yourself. I think that you should allow yourself to do that, not to hold yourself back. So I think it's, you know, there are some times, do you guys find yourself like most creative at night, or do you guys find yourself most creative in the morning? Night? Yeah.
Night.
Both. Both is the worst.
I mean, it's 12:30 at night for me right now, so yeah, I'm definitely way like, I usually start working around like 3 or 4 p.m. until like late into the evening.
Because everyone's asleep and it's quiet. And
Yeah.
It's easy to tap into.
Yeah, it kind of depends to me. Like, I do different types of work depending on the time of the day. Like, more at night before going to bed, it's like creative time. I don't usually do 3D. I just write concepts and draw. I cannot draw at all, but I try to draw some concepts on my iPad and stuff. So in the next day, I can actually like sit down and work on the more technical aspect of it, right? So for me, creative only at night, and hard work, quote unquote, like technical work in the morning. It's always like that.
Yeah,
That's so
it's
funny. That's really funny, because I feel like it's a bit of the same thing for me. But the real fact is that I have to take nights off because, again, quality time, partner, life, trying to socialize, etc. That's like a challenge, you know. So sometimes I can do that. Sometimes I cannot. For example, yesterday, well, actually, this night, I couldn't sleep, and it's weird because it hasn't happened quite often lately. But yesterday I couldn't sleep because I was trying to reach some heights for Heal the Deal and for Stage 3, etc. because I started creating other things. And then I laid in bed and I was like, oh, I was starting to visualize all of those assets, etc. You know, it's really weird. Like, it's like I love this illustration. I don't know if you've seen this meme floating around the internet, but there's like this illustration of a person filled with like anxiety, like until up here, and when they lay down, the anxiety just reaches their mind, and that's how I felt like. It's so weird, but when you lay down, it's like when everything happens somehow, it's weird.
It's because all the distractions go away and you're just left with your thoughts, and you're
Exactly.
like thinking about all the things you're working on.
And it's like, it's such a bad timing because I've been trying to switch my sleep pattern in terms of going to sleep earlier and waking up earlier as well. So, for example, last year I was waking up at like, let's say like 10 or 11 in the morning, and now I'm waking up at 8 and going to sleep earlier. And so when I wake up early, I can't create. My brain's not prepared for that. So I have to do all of the administrative side of work, emails, Discord, Twitter, and all of that. And the very fact is that all of these things take so much time that when you're actually finished, it's like midday already, like 2 p.m. or something, and you're just like, you've wasted, not like wasted so much time, but you know the feeling. You know you could have done something else than that.
That's another thing. Like for us, at least for me, like the time that I spend replying to emails and interacting on Twitter, it doesn't feel like work, but it's work. You know, like these things are pushing your career somehow, but we do not see that as work, and I think that's a problem. Like we should account that as work too.
I definitely view my Twitter as work, and it's actually kind of annoying because I'm, like I mentioned earlier, I live in Amsterdam, and so my sleep schedule is like I go to sleep around like 3 or 4 a.m. and wake up around noon. It's like not great, but it's constantly reinforced by the time zones, because if I post something on Twitter at noon my time, that's 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time and like 9 p.m. at night in California, and like NFT Twitter, in my opinion, runs on Eastern Standard Time, like in the US, like the East Coast, or sometimes, you know, based in LA. So like my engagement on Twitter, I don't post anything until it's like at least 6 p.m. And like there's so many times where I'll be like dealing with stuff in DMs, and then like I'm selling my art in DMs at 4 a.m. because the person I'm DMing is in, you know, New York or Florida, and they just got off work because now it's evening for them and I have to be available, and like it's kind of hard to turn off, but like luckily my boyfriend also works from home and like has his own company within the creative industry, and also has like within the last couple of months gotten involved with NFTs, so his schedule's equally as flexible, and so I find it like it's less like I don't have to necessarily fit my schedule into a schedule of somebody else who maybe works full time or has like a standard 9 to 5 or something, and like, you know, we can have a nice evening on like a Tuesday, and it's not necessarily like, I don't know, it's just nice that like a lot of aspects of my life are flexible to accommodate that, but it's definitely, I'm not sure if it's like the healthiest, but I've found like that works so far for me, but it definitely sounds like a bit weird when I talk to other people. I'm like, so I was up until 7 a.m. and like what the fuck? Like, you woke up at 1 p.m.
I mean, it's not. I think everyone here can agree that it's not weird for us. Like everyone has been there, you know.
Yeah.
If no matter what time zones we are in, everyone has done that already, which is something interesting about the community, is that everyone understands the struggles because everyone's doing around the same thing. So we, you know, I think no one's here to judge how you work around your schedule because everyone is so off schedule, but I get it. It's really frustrating to be in a different time zone. I was getting really anxious about, I'm just thinking about that out loud, by the way, but I'm going to France for Christmas, for example. It's been like 2 years. I haven't seen my family, and I'm just like, yes, amazing, going to France for like 2 weeks, and it's going to be fucking amazing. And then I'm just like thinking about the fact that I'm going back to my old time zone, and I remember how fucking difficult it was. Because even back in the days, I'm sure Nick can agree on that, because back in the days when it was like only Instagram and all of that, everyone was like trying to figure out what's the best time to post. And like how the hashtags, obviously, but the timing and the days, etc., was really like, that was the thing. And I remember being so stressed out about like posting at this exact time, like at it was like 6 p.m. Paris time or something. And I feel like now I'm having like flashbacks of that. I don't know.
I was so sporadic with my Instagram postings. I'm like, the artwork's done. Boom. Yeah. I don't care what.
So
People find
it's so interesting about you because I mentioned you seem like a super chill person. You know, you have that attitude,
Yeah, I get that a lot.
that energy, you know, of like being really chill and genuine, etc. But you were also mentioning like panic attacks, etc. And I think this is an important thing to mention and notice is that so many people are showing themselves as being chill, etc., because that's like a part of themselves. There's so much more going on behind the scenes and things we don't talk about. And I appreciate Nick for mentioning that because panic attacks are a real damn hard thing to deal with, and it happens to basically everyone. Like you could be like the most chill person on earth, but you could still struggle so much. And I just wanted to know and talk about that just a little bit more on how those crisis, panic attacks, and just like basically events affects your practice in general, you know?
I mean, I find it like at points. I think last panic attack I had probably was like in 2018, 2017. And it's just kind of understanding what triggers you. And it could be as simple as like I'm on the computer too much and I'm drinking too much caffeine or coffee, and understanding like, okay, maybe I'm not a coffee drinker, maybe I need to drink more tea, and kind of changing maybe habits or simple things like that, or just actually having to deal with personal life because like I think this is a good time and space to talk about it, but I went like no contact with my parents back in like 2015. That's when I formed Sulo, and that's when I understood like I didn't have a really I had a toxic family. I had a not very healthy supportive family that grew up, and so I was very kind of self-starter and had to be very independent, and I came to terms with a lot of things, and I was always kind of a kid that was super chill but hated conflict, and I had to deal with a lot of conflict at that point, and it triggered a lot of like panic attacks for me. So I had to kind of navigate those things and figure what's triggering these panic attacks, and in ways you have to kind of avoid those triggers, and also I feel like you maybe kind of have to kind of confront it too. But yeah, it's tricky, and just finding ways, being, some people find it helpful being meditative, or sometimes meditation doesn't help for people that have panic attacks, and they do things like stimming, like those fidget spinners are great ways of outputting, or there's all sorts of different ways. Honestly, for me personally, I found those ways as a great outlet. But yeah. It's pretty interesting.
I would love to maybe extend a little bit on the topic of identifying your triggers, right? I had 3 experiences with panic attacks for the past few years, and like it was pretty hard for me to actually identify the triggers, right? Because my triggers are not correlated to work on itself. Usually when I'm really stressed out, I kind of get these moments of zoning out completely, just like the beginning of a panic attack. But my problem is I'm quote unquote, I don't know if I'm translating the word correctly, hypochondriac. I don't know, the person that kind of worries a lot about like health stuff, right? So my trigger is if I start getting into this zone, I kind of start overthinking about my health. Oh my God, I'm fucking dying. And then that spirals down into the panic attack on itself, right? So for me, it was really important to try to identify that moment in which I either spiral down into panic attack or either I'm chill, I break the cycle and I don't get into it. So I think that recognizing on itself the actual triggers is really important, like to avoid those panic attacks,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, panic attacks and crises in general can be like anxiety crises or just panic attacks or whatever feels uncomfortable, basically. I feel like they they are, you know, a bit of a chain we're tied to, because when you feel yourself drifting towards that event, it is difficult to just stop it, and you just tend to debate and just like move and just try to get out of it, when really it's like a swamp, you know, like you have to actually do not move and let it sink and accept the thing. But it's human nature to just fight things off. And then when it happens on a casual day, and you had plans to work on such things and other things and all of that planned, and then there's a meeting, and then there's all of that planned, it's just, you know, those things, they always happen in the worst moments. So you're stressing out even more, because you have all of those things you're trying to do, but then you feel like you're about to die, because that's how it feels inside. And it's terrible. It's terrible, because most of the time you cannot even pinpoint the trigger, because most of the time panic attacks can happen like out of the blue, and you don't know. You're washing the dishes, you're going to the grocery store or whatnot, and it happens, and you're just left with that. But it's like it's something triggered by your subconscious, and that is fueled by so many anxiety thoughts and just events that you were confronted to in the past few weeks, days, etc. And so it's really difficult for people in general to pinpoint where it comes from. But I feel like it's interesting what Nick was mentioning, is that, you know, you mentioned that you weren't suffering from panic attacks anymore, or at least since 2018, 17,
Yeah.
18, which is something that I wanted to highlight, because, you know, there's actually hope, and it's not going to be always like that, but it's going to take time. But it's not going to be always like that. You're not gonna just spend your whole life feeling like this. And I feel it's interesting to hear from Nick's perspective with his experience, because it can also likely bring some more energy and hopes to, you know, people who are still struggling with that. But I feel like it's a lot of work, and you have to be really dedicated to your health in general. That's a full-time work, and we don't have time to do that. And I know it. but we have to. Speaking of experience, we talked about that earlier. I'm changing the topic a bit, but I wanted to not confront Sam and Nick, for example, but, you know, having that newcomer and experienced artist kind of point of view, I wanted to see how it feels for you, Sam, for example, to be in an industry, in a community where you are surrounded by so many people, you know, who are here for a few years, a decade sometimes as well. And how does it feel sometimes? Do you feel like there is any pressure for you? Does it feel just really inspiring? Does it trigger things for you that you may wish to not feel sometimes? I don't know.
Actually, for me, it's like very exciting and like thrilling. So I started doing graphic design when I was like 13, and I was able to take like graphic design classes at my high school, and then I studied graphic design at art school, and I really spent like the last. So I mean, I've been doing art for the last like 10 years, and I mean, and I've been online for that like whole time. So like my Twitter has been around since 2012, and like it's been like Sam J Studios the whole time. So I've always sort of been trying to be a sort of like professional artist and break into the scene, and, you know, just I've always had like these like kind of ambitions, and for the longest time I was like, I felt I had to go through the bureaucracy of like being a student and just like getting that checked off the box, and then jumping into the industry, and then Like I said, I tried to freelance right away because I was like, I don't want to get a job because that's only going to hold me back even more. And like, I just spent the last 10 years being a student, and I don't want to have to wait even longer by getting a full-time job. Like, I just want to jump right into it. So for me, it's like really, really thrilling that things like NFTs, like, you know, I can meet people who have been practicing designers for decades, and I've met like concept artists that worked on like Fifth Element, and I've met artists that have worked with famous musicians and artists who are professors, and they view me as a peer, and they see me with like respect, and they don't have this weird sort of diminutive view of me that I'm so used to from like, you know, professor versus student. And like, so for me, it's just, I think it's motivating because I value the opportunity like immensely, and that was something that was really exciting for me as you know, starting in NFTs, is like I can just talk to art collectors, and I can talk to, you know, famous artists or people who are famous in my eyes, just like as, you know, pals, as friends. And like that was something that was sort of like held for me for a really long time as a student. So I've just been, you know, like trying to be a sponge and like soak up as much as I can, and hearing you guys talk about your experiences with anxiety and work-life balance and all of that, like I'm really trying to take that into account. Like I said, I've really kind of only been doing this for about a year and a half, and so I'm still really trying to take my time and like not push myself too hard and figure out my boundaries and like not go too crazy with things. And yeah, I mean, without derailing too long, that's kind of what my view and my experience has been so far. And yeah, I don't know. I'm also a huge art history nerd, so I love to read about previous artists and like their experience and all how they were friends with all their other famous artist friends, and like that's just what I feel like now. I feel like we're all in art history and we're all friends and we're all doing cool things that people are going to read about in the future and be like, I can't believe these artists were all hanging out together. And so I mean, I don't know, I'm just excited about it.
Yeah, it's exciting. Yeah, I feel you on the education side of things, like going to school. I always felt like there's a hierarchy and like a weird expectation from teachers, and in ways like education was great, but like once you kind of get out and you start working with other people, you start noticing a bit of a more collaborative community element to that. And it feels like everyone's, even in like being in the VFX industry, it feels like everyone was like on equal playing grounds, and it felt very collaborative, and I think people are very understanding. It's a different vibe with the school and education. Great experience. Like I went to art school in San Francisco. I loved it. I loved living in San Francisco for about 5-6 years. But you know, like you get to a certain point where like, okay, I know I'm not going to be a teacher. I want to do something with my career, and I want to push myself forward and start meeting great people along the way. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I would love to add that I think that the NFT space, I mean, contrasting with the time that I used it to only hang out on Instagram, like for the past few years, versus like the NFT space and the whole new level of interaction that we have on Twitter and then Clubhouse and moments like these. I think that the fact that we now are able to understand more about the artists and their history and story and like experiences help a lot when it comes to comparing yourself to other artists, because I think that's inevitable, right? And I would love to touch on this topic because there are two artists in specific that I use it to compare myself a lot. One is Ness Graphics, right? And the other one is Exulo right here. Right, and I use it to I'm being 100% honest. Like I use it to look up to these guys a lot on the Instagram like time. And I remember that when Exulo followed me and we were chatting on Instagram, and then he sent me like his work for, I believe, Rainbow Six Siege, right, from Ubisoft, and you told me like, oh, I work with VFX like for years and stuff and blah blah blah, and I was like, okay, this dude is really damn good because he has like a lot of experience, right? As opposed to me that maybe like has been doing 3D for like 3 or 4 years, you know? So that help understanding that, and it's the same with Nas. Like Nas is a genius. He works a lot, and by understanding like the background of each artist, it helped me to, okay, these guys have experience, I need time, and I will be just like them, you know? So I think that that's an important thing to point out.
Yeah, I definitely like I experience that a lot as well, because you guys talk a lot about your experiences on like Instagram and social media prior to NFTs. And like I said, I've been on Twitter for a really long time, but my like I only had like a couple hundred followers that were mostly just like mutuals that had nothing to do with art. So most of my art following is from NFTs, and my experience as a professional artist is all NFTs, which is nice because I avoid a lot of the weird like comments. But with people like, for example, you know, fuck render, or you know, any of these people who have been professionals for decades and have huge accolades under their belt, it's like I'll see fuck render come into the space, or shoot, I'm forgetting her name, but she did the like the boys collectibles.
Oh, Lirona.
Lirona.
Yeah.
Lirona, yeah.
And like they come into the space, and you know, they're incredibly talented, and then they blow up, and they have, you know, as they should, like their work is incredible. But then I'm like, well, I was here first, and I've had NFTs for longer, like, and it's hard to, I forget sometimes that people have had these really long, extensive careers prior to the NFT space, because in my mind, like, my career is only within the NFT space. So recently I've sort of realized, I've had that realization sort of as well, and like I was talking to somebody in DMs who was helping me with some VR stuff, and we were just chatting about like VR and fashion, and they were like, oh yeah, I helped do a lot of the tech design for the Balenciaga films. And I was like, what? Like, hold on, like, what the fuck? Like, it's just completely like left ball, like out of left field. I was but yeah, at this point I think generally my art is hard to compare to other people because it's really weird, and none of the projects I do on my own page are kind of comparable to themselves. A lot of my projects are very different from each other. So I kind of have a like get out of jail free card because of that. Like, it's just like hard to, but I do come from a motion design background, so I kind of like lean more towards comparing myself to people who do motion design, like Kid Mograph or Lirona or Fuck Render, those kinds of people. But you know, those are all three like iconic artists prior to the NFT space. So
it's interesting. I think I talked about that a few times. I think it was on Twitter Spaces, or perhaps I was I don't remember the name of the app. I have my memory just failed me.
Is it Clubhouse?
Thank you.
Okay.
I was like about to say Crypto House. I'm just like, it's not the name, right? So yeah, I think I mentioned about this a few times on either of those apps, but comparison in general can lead you to being envious of people, and I feel like no one is really envious by nature, you know. It's not like that's like a thing that you are born with or something. And I believe it's a really frustrating feeling to experience for everyone, because no one wants to be like that, because that's actually really disturbing to see you in that state of being envious of someone for some obscure reason, you know, like, because that's not fair. And but also the emotion of envy in general is so natural to experience, especially in the creative field, etc. But as it's also fine to experience such emotions, but as long as you actually acknowledge that you are experiencing it, and that you don't do anything crazy out of this, you know, and you just settle the emotion in, you just observe it, you try to understand it, to see where it comes from, what makes you feel like that, and turn it into a different kind of energy, from negative to positive, you know. I feel like that's important because that's another kind of fuel for the car you're driving through your journey, you know? So it's interesting to see it as something else. I've been experiencing that myself, like every single day. But sometimes it's more stronger, sometimes it's weaker, but I love what I'm doing out of it, which is basically trying to remind myself that I am envious, but I am envious of people I respect for certain reasons. But what I'm going to do out of this emotion is to turn it into something positive for me and as a reminder of the fact that I am unique. There's no one that is me except myself, in this world. That's fact. That's science, and I feel like that's an interesting revelation to have every single time that you feel envious, is that you feel those emotions because that's human nature, but then you evolve from that and you don't have grief or you don't feel frustrated when you see those people succeeding anymore, because you know that the things you put out for yourself and for others are going to go back to yourself 3 times better. That's like the karma thing,
Yeah.
I've seen that in a book that my best friend told me about the other day. There's like a scheme that's like a hand. It's like a gun. It's like basically like this is where the energy come from the universe, from a top. This is how you project it into the world, and then it comes back to yourself. Just right there.
Okay.
So that's like a little illustration, I guess, of karma and all of those things that come out of different kinds of emotions, positive or negative.
So yeah, there could be good karma and there could be bad karma.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think
Exactly.
also it's kind of easy to be envious because,
Yeah.
especially in the social media space, like I watch interviews for like origin stories from Roger Dickerman or Dickman, whatever his last name is, and they're always great interviews that they're long. They're still like 2 hours long, and they cover a lot of the backstory from a lot of these artists. But you can't cover your entire art career in 2 hours even, and so it's still somewhat of a highlight reel, and it's really like, as a listener who's also developing a creative career, it's like, oh, what, like, why don't I get those opportunities, or how come this hasn't happened to me, and blah blah blah. And it's like they probably worked very hard in between all those highlights that they're showcasing, and they probably they've done a lot as well. So I think it's just your first instinct reaction is to be envious because that's like the easiest interpretation. But I've kind of, what you were saying is like, I try to look at it and be like, okay, well, what can I do to prepare myself for when an opportunity like that comes, or how can I take what they've done to become successful and channel that myself? And like, I mean, even just small things, like I remember seeing Victor or Ferocious make little vlogs about his art drops on Twitter back in like October, November. And at the time, the NFT space was very heavily like anonymous. That was a big aspect. Not so much anymore, but I've never really been anonymous on the internet. So I was like, oh well, I'll make videos. That looks like fun, and it seems to be working out for him. And it was sort of, yeah, I mean, kind of just channeling that into my own practice, and it definitely helped me as well. Like, just because somebody's finding success doing one thing doesn't mean that it's like it's not a limited resource. You can also tap into that same success.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Oops. Real quick, just as a side note, I think that things like what Roger does with origin stories are so important, because you have an opportunity to get a inside look of the artist's life, and that helps you to understand, okay, their career, it doesn't came out of nowhere, that there was a process, it developed over years and stuff. So I think that's really important to actually help you not to feel envious that much, because I think that, okay, as we discussed, envy is kind of natural impulse sometimes, but as you kind of understand that this person, okay, the person worked to get there, it's more easy to convert that envy feeling towards respect. I don't know, at least for me.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Also, one thing I wanted to mention is that this kind of inside look of like people's experiences and where they come from, what did they do to get here, basically, is something that we didn't have the opportunity to look for, I guess, in the community, because the boundaries between people were so much more defined than they are now, thanks to NFTs, crypto, Twitter, etc. And I'm so grateful and proud of what we are doing on just blurring out all those boundaries between newcomers, freelancers, professionals, designer, all of that, because I feel like everyone was a bit isolated and recluse into their own spaces, and everyone was being envious of everyone else, but never talking about the real deal, like what's behind that, because all of those people we envy are also envying other people, and that's like a vicious circle. And really, when we take the time to build a community as we're doing right now, it helps so much, because that's also helping people to get in a better mindset, having a better mental health state as well, because those things, that when you keep experiencing them, they can really drive you into a bad condition. You can really feel upset, and it's difficult to just live out of that on a daily basis. So I really hope that we can continue those efforts into the future of NFT community, but also outside of it. If it crumbles at some point, if all of that disappear at some point, I hope that we are going to be able to keep those efforts up and just keep being the same group of people and caring for each other and trying to see what's behind the facade, I guess.
Yeah, if it does all crumble, it's like at least we have all those connections made with people. I think that's the beauty of it. So
that's what remains, when life is over. That's what you remember. Yeah, exactly. And I'm so grateful, because this is how I see everyone in this chat and in this conversation. I feel so close yet so far from everyone, but I am also 100 times grateful for everything that has happened. I will never be that much grateful to people in general, because I feel like my gratefulness for our community is immense and eternal, I guess. I just get really emotional whenever I think about it, because I can see how I was before, I can see how I am now, and I can see how all of this changed me. And I can't wait for it to change people's life, and be for the better, I guess. But hey, enough ramble of me getting emotional as per usual. It's already been an hour. It's things. Time flies, guys. It flies when you have a great time. We're going to have to close this conversation for now, but hey, I hope that we can have you on board on another one. I don't know what's the future of all of these conversations, but I really hope that perhaps one day we will make like a big room out of like so many people together, and perhaps like actually see each other one day IRL, But in the meantime, I just wanted to thank you, everyone, Nick, Sam, Fesk, myself, for being here, for taking some time to just discuss all of those things that are really, really important. I really value you. You're important to me. You're important to this community. So thank you for that. Thank you for everyone in the chat as well. All of our beautiful members and auditors, I guess. And voila.
Yeah, hold on just a second. Before I close off the stream, please, Nick and Sam, do not leave the actual call, please. Because last time there was a time everyone left. I was the only one here, and the stream was still running. So yeah, please.
Yeah,
Don't leave.
it's your time to promote your work when no one's here anymore. You're just like, hey, I have this NFT to sell.
Yeah, I have a new
etc.
drop
That's
coming.
your
But yeah.
time to shine, baby.
But yeah,
But
so yeah. On that note, like, thanks for everyone that was here. All the people in the chat. Nick, Sam, was an amazing chat. And yeah, do anyone has final words and stuff like that? Please feel free to.
Stay healthy mentally and physically, and love yourself.
Yeah. Preach. Well, my word, as per usual, is drink water, wear SPF, and breathe in, breathe out. You know that. That's the 3 rules. But other than that, thank you, everyone. See you soon. And until then, take care.